I never really thought I'd be the guy to get blindsided like this, especially not on my own anniversary. Megan and I had been together for nearly 8 years. High school sweethearts turned into a married couple, the kind people look at and say that's what love looks like. But somewhere along the way, things started to shift. Little signs that I brushed off at first. She became more irritable, snapping at me over stupid stuff, avoiding intimacy even when I tried to reconnect. I figured she was just stressed at work or maybe she was tired of the routine. I didn't want to overthink it, but the biggest clue came about 2 weeks ago. I noticed she was acting weird about her phone, always keeping it close, even during dinner or when we sat on the couch. She'd hide her screen or quickly swipe away messages. I asked her about it once, just a casual "what's up with the phone?" And she shot me a glare saying, "It's nothing, just work stuff you're overthinking." I wanted to believe her, but the gut instinct was screaming that something was off. Still, I let it go, mostly because I didn't want to stir trouble on what was supposed to be a special day. Then came the night that changed everything. We went out to that fancy downtown restaurant, the one we'd always wanted to try for our anniversary. It was supposed to be perfect, good food, wine, laughs, but all I could think about was how distant she felt. Megan was acting like she was elsewhere, distracted, glancing at her phone under the table. I noticed that her messages started to look different, more frequent, more secretive. She'd hide her phone every time I looked her way, but her notifications kept pinging. I was about to write it off as work stuff again when I saw the message that shattered me. It was from someone named Danny, and the words made my stomach drop. I caught myself leaning closer, trying to read the screen without her noticing. My heart started pounding. There were plans for later that week, mentions of her and us, and even stuff about sneaking away for sex. Sex. During our anniversary dinner. My mind spun. How long had this been going on? I felt a strange numbness mixed with this fiery betrayal. I couldn't believe I was seeing this with my own eyes. Megan, the woman I loved, was cheating on me with my best friend. The guy I trusted more than anyone. I don't think I've ever felt so stupid, so humiliated. I didn't want to make a scene in the restaurant, so I quietly excused myself to the bathroom. I looked at my reflection in the mirror, calm on the outside, a storm raging inside. I knew I had to confront her. But what do you say when the person you trusted the most in the world has been lying so blatantly? How do I even process the fact that the life I thought we had is a lie? I was angry, devastated, and honestly, confused about what to do next. I just sat there, trembling, staring at her phone on the table, debating whether I should grab it or just leave her to the mess she'd created. I didn't sleep that night. The thought of her with him, how she looked at him, how she touched him, kept playing over and over in my head. I kept wondering what I did wrong, if I missed signs or if I was just blind to what was right. In front of me, I kept asking myself if she ever really loved me. That night everything changed. I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. I had to face the truth no matter how much it hurt. The morning after was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck, eyes puffy, stomach churning, mind racing with what I'd seen the night before. I lay there for a while, trying to piece together what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to wake her up, demand answers, and tear her apart. But another part, smarter maybe, knew that rushing into confrontation might blow everything up in a way I'd regret later. Megan was still sleeping beside me, her face peaceful but so unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I watched her for a moment, feeling this strange mix of love, anger, and betrayal. I couldn't believe she'd crossed such a line. I had always thought she was the woman I'd marry over and over again, but now I saw that I'd been blind. She had been planning this thing with Danny for weeks, behind my back, and I only found out because I was stupid enough to glance at her phone. I didn't want to wake her just yet, so I quietly snuck out of bed and went to my office where I pulled up her messages. I couldn't stop myself, I needed to see more. And what I saw made my blood boil. There were dozens of texts, flirtatious, suggestive, intimate, talking about meeting up, about how much she craved him, how she wanted to leave me for him. It was like reading some twisted secret diary. I looked at the timestamps. Most of these messages were from just a few weeks ago. She had been lying to me every day, smiling at my face, pretending everything was normal. I couldn't believe how deceitful she was. Megan, my wife, the woman I thought I knew, was orchestrating a double life. And Danny, my best friend, how could he do this? How could someone I trusted so much betray me like this? It felt like a punch to the gut every time I read another message. I felt sick. I felt betrayed. And yet part of me was also furious. Furious at Megan for her lies, furious at Danny for his betrayal, furious at myself for not seeing it sooner. I knew I couldn't keep quiet, I had to confront her, but I had no idea what to say or how to even begin. I was tempted to just explode all over her, demand explanations, tears, screams, whatever it took to make her understand that I knew everything. But I also knew that would only make things worse, that I needed to stay calm, gather my thoughts, and decide what I really wanted. Megan finally woke up around midday, still half asleep. I pretended everything was normal, made her coffee, kissed her forehead. Inside I was seething. When she asked how I was, I didn't hold back. I looked her in the eyes and said, "We need to talk now." Her face changed instantly, panic, annoyance, maybe even a flicker of guilt. But she tried to brush it off, to laugh it away, saying she was tired, that I was overreacting. That's when I pulled out her phone and put it in front of her face. "Explain this," I said, voice cold. "Explain to me what this is all about. Who's Danny, Megan? And why the hell were you planning to cheat on me during our anniversary?" Dinner? Her eyes widened and she started to lie right away, saying it was all a mistake, that it was just a flirtation, that she never meant for it to go this far. But I knew better. I saw the truth. I saw her guilt, her panicked attempts to cover her tracks. She kept saying, "It's not what it looks like, and I was drunk, and it was just sex, it doesn't mean anything." But I didn't buy any of it. Nothing about her story added up. I could see that she'd been planning this for a while, and I'd been too blind to see it. I felt a rage boiling inside me, hot and uncontrollable. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built? I wanted to scream, to shout, maybe even hit something, but I held myself back. I needed to stay rational, even if it was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. The worst part was her trying to justify it, saying she was bored, that he was just a distraction, and that she didn't mean for it to get this serious. Seriously, that was her excuse. That she's just some victim of circumstance. I wanted to spit in her face. Instead, I told her to leave, to get out of my life. I didn't want to see her face anymore, not until I'd had time to think. That day, I felt broken in ways I never thought possible. My trust was shattered, and I was left staring at the ruins of what I thought was a perfect marriage. All I could think about was how she'd lied, how she'd betrayed me, and how I'd let myself believe in fairy tales. Now I was just angry, lost, and trying to figure out what came next. I knew I couldn't forgive her, not now, maybe never. But I also knew I had to decide whether I wanted to fight for this or tear it all down and walk away. After she left that afternoon, I didn't even know what to do with myself. Normally, I'd drown my feelings in work or some stupid hobby, but today everything felt numb. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the door, wondering how I got here. How did I go from being a guy who thought marriage was forever to this? The betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I kept replaying her words, her lies, her excuses, and honestly, I felt disgusted with her. Not just for cheating, but for lying so blatantly, for acting like it was nothing, like I was the idiot for trusting her. The next few hours were a blur. I tried to focus, to think about what I really wanted, but all I could see was her face, her sneaky texts, her sneering lies. I finally decided I needed to hear from her again, because I couldn't just cut her out like some stranger. I texted her, told her to come back home so we could talk. I needed closure, even if I didn't want to admit it. When she did come back, she looked like a different person, her face pale, her eyes darting around nervously. She sat down across from me, trying to act like everything was normal. But I saw right through her act. I didn't waste time. I told her I knew everything about the messages, the planning, the sex, and that I wasn't going to pretend I was okay with any of it. I asked her why. Why did she do it? What the hell was she thinking? Her reply was classic Megan, full of bullshit. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, but she was just bored and wanted something new. She claimed she didn't mean for it to happen, that Danny was just a way to feel alive again. I wanted to laugh at her pathetic attempt to justify her actions. That's when I realized she'd been lying from the start. That was her go-to: lie, deny, minimize. She's good at it too. I told her that I deserved honesty, that I was sick of her playing the victim. I asked her if she even cared about me or if I was just some afterthought. Her face twisted into some kind of guilt mixed with defiance, but I saw right through it. For the first time, I really saw her for who she was: a manipulative, selfish woman who'd been screwing around behind my back for weeks. And that hurt more than anything. I loved her, I really did, but I couldn't stay with someone who'd betray me like that. Not after I saw what she was capable of. I told her she had to make a choice: stop seeing Danny, come clean to everyone, or walk away forever. I wasn't going to be her fallback, her secret, her fool. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and said she'd think about it. I didn't believe her, but I told her she needed to decide fast because I wasn't going to wait around forever. That night, I stayed up all night, thinking about everything. I kept asking myself how I let this happen, how I failed to see the signs, how I trusted her so blindly. I kept wondering if I should try to save what's left of us, or if I should just walk away and cut out the cancer that was this betrayal. My feelings were a storm: anger at her for cheating, sadness that I lost the woman I thought I knew, and confusion about what I was supposed to do now. I realized I was only hurting myself by holding on to hope that she'd suddenly change. By morning, I knew I had to face the truth. If I was going to move forward, I needed to be honest with myself. Megan was a liar, a cheat, and a manipulator. She'd lied for weeks, maybe longer. She'd broken something inside me that I didn't think could ever be fixed. I didn't want her back, not as she was. I needed to start thinking about my own future, about whether I could ever trust again. And honestly, I was leaning toward just ending it all. Not the marriage, but the pain, the betrayal, the constant doubt. I couldn't live like this anymore, not with her in my life. I had to decide whether I'd fight for her or walk away for good. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever had to face. Everything felt raw, like my skin was peeled back, exposing every nerve, every hurt, every ounce of betrayal. I kept replaying what I saw on her phone, trying to make sense of it all, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find any justification for what she did. Megan kept calling, texting, trying to plead her case, saying she was sorry, that she loved me, that she didn't want to lose us. But each time I looked at her messages, I saw only one thing: lies. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at her last message, her begging for a second chance. I was so damn angry, but beneath that anger was this deep sadness I couldn't shake. I'd given her everything: my love, my trust, my time. And in just a few weeks, she'd handed it all over to someone else. I wondered how I missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. Honestly, I felt like I'd been played for a fool. How the hell do you recover from that? The thing is, I knew I couldn't keep pretending I was okay. I had to be honest with myself. I was hurting, yes, but I was also furious. Furious that she thought she could get away with it. Furious that she betrayed me so openly. And most of all, I was devastated. Devastated because I'd loved her, thought she was the person I'd spend my life with, and now I was facing the brutal reality that maybe she never really loved me at all. Maybe I'd been just some placeholder, someone to come home to while she secretly chased after her other life. So I made a decision. I called my brother, Mark, and told him everything. I needed someone who knew me well, someone I could trust to give me honest advice. When I told him, he was furious, said I deserved better, that Megan was a lying, manipulative bitch who didn't deserve my love. Hearing that from someone I trusted made me feel a little stronger, but it also deepened my pain. That night, I sat alone and thought about what I was going to do next. I knew I couldn't stay in limbo forever. I had to take control. I started planning my next move. I reached out to a lawyer just to understand my options. God, I never thought I'd be in a situation where I'd need legal advice in the middle of such personal chaos. But here I was. I also reached out to a counselor because I knew I needed help processing all these feelings. I couldn't let her betray me and then let her control my future. Not anymore. Meanwhile, Megan kept trying. She showed up at my work, sent me long messages begging me to forgive her, claiming she'd changed, that she'd stop seeing Danny. I was tired of her lies. I told her I needed space, that I didn't want to see her or hear from her. Until I was ready. Honestly, I felt nothing but numb in that moment. Part of me still loved her, but another part was already over it, done with the betrayal, done with the lies, done with pretending everything was okay. As I sat there contemplating my next steps, I realized something. I'd built my life around her, around our plans, our future. But now I saw that I had to rebuild from scratch. I had to rediscover who I was without her. It hurt like hell to say that, but deep down I knew it was the only way forward. Trust had been broken, and I didn't know if I could ever fix it. Maybe it was time to let go, to start over and find myself again outside of her shadow. That thought scared me, but it also gave me a strange sense of relief. I was finally starting to see what I needed, to heal, to grow, and to move on from this nightmare. The weeks that followed were a blur of emotional roller coaster and tough decisions. I moved out of our shared apartment, something I never thought I'd do, especially not during what should have been a celebration of our marriage. I couldn't stay there, not with the memories of her lies and the betrayal lingering everywhere I looked. I found a small place downtown, close enough that I could still get to my job, but far enough to give myself some space to breathe. Living alone was a shock at first. No Megan to argue with, no false smiles to pretend everything was fine. Just silence. I spent a lot of nights staring at the ceiling, trying to piece myself back together. It was during those quiet moments I realized how much I'd lost, my trust, my sense of security, my future with her. But it was also during those nights I started to regain a little clarity. I couldn't change what she did, but I could choose how to move forward. I could rebuild myself, even if it hurt like hell. I also started reaching out to my friends, people I hadn't really talked to in years. Mark, my brother, was the first to come over and just sit with me, drink whiskey, and listen. I told him everything, including my fears about never trusting again. His advice was simple but powerful. You're better off without someone who doesn't respect you. You're worth more than that. Hearing that made me realize I'd been selling myself short, accepting her lies because I didn't want to admit she'd betrayed me. But deep down, I knew I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect. Someone who truly loved me. One thing that really hit me was how Megan kept trying to contact me, begging, crying, promising she'd change. I was tempted at first to respond, to give her a chance to explain, but I knew better. I saw her for what she was, a liar, a manipulator. I couldn't trust her anymore. That realization was both freeing and heartbreaking. I wasn't going to be her fallback, her plan B. I was done being the guy who gets betrayed and then tries to fix things. I had to focus on myself now. I started working out again, trying to channel my anger into something productive. Running, lifting, getting outside, it all helped clear my mind, even if just a little. I also took up some new hobbies, trying to find things that made me happy beyond the pain. It wasn't easy. Some days were worse than others. I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, feeling like I'd never trust anyone again. But I kept reminding myself that I was still here, still standing. That was something. Most importantly, I decided I wasn't going to rush into any decisions. I needed time to heal, to reflect, to understand what I truly wanted. I knew I'd probably never forget what she did, but I also knew I had to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly. I had to accept that she was who she was, someone who could betray her vows, lie to my face, and cheat with my best friend. That realization was a punch to the gut, but it also felt like a weight lifting. I was finally starting to see the truth clearly, even if it hurt. Now I'm at a crossroads. Do I try to salvage what's broken? Do I give her another chance, or do I walk away for good? Honestly, I don't know yet. What I do know is that I won't let this define me. I'm going to rebuild my life, better, stronger, more cautious, but I'm also going to heal. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find happiness again. The road ahead is uncertain, but I refuse to let this betrayal destroy me. I'm still here, still fighting, and I deserve better than what she ever gave me. Looking back now, I realize that what hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal itself, but how I let it shake my confidence in everything I believed about love and trust. For years, I thought I had found the woman who was my soulmate, someone I could rely on, build a life with. And in the end, I was blindsided by her lies, her manipulation, her selfishness. It tore me apart, but it also forced me to face who I really am, someone capable of surviving the worst, of rebuilding from the ashes. I learned that trust isn't something you give blindly. It's fragile, and it has to be earned every day. I also learned that no matter how much you love someone, you can't force them to be honest or faithful. If they choose to betray you, you have to decide whether to fight for what's broken or walk away. For me, walking away was the only choice, because staying with someone who lies and cheats only damages your soul more. What I've come to understand is that healing takes time. I still have bad days, moments when I wonder if I should try again, if I should reach out or forgive her. But I know deep down that forgiveness isn't about excusing her actions. It's about freeing myself from the pain she caused. I refuse to carry that burden forever. Instead, I focus on myself, my happiness, my growth, my future. I owe that to myself after everything I've been through. Now I look at life differently. I see people more clearly, trust more cautiously, and value my own well-being more than ever. I don't regret loving her because that love was real once. But I do regret not seeing the signs sooner, how blind I was to her lies. I hope anyone reading this who's going through something similar understands. Betrayal cuts deep, but you're stronger than the pain. You can survive, you can rebuild, and you can come out better on the other side. This story isn't just about betrayal, it's about resilience. About realizing that your worth isn't defined by someone else's actions. About knowing when to fight and when to let go. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply walking away and proving to yourself that you're worth more than the lies they told. That's what I'm doing now, moving on, building a new life free from the shadows of that betrayal. It's not easy, it never will be, but I know I'm better off without her. And someday I'll find happiness again, on my own terms, without the lies, without the betrayal.